Gentlemen, welcome back to Go to Market Crossroads. I've missed you. It's been about 2 weeks since our last recording. Um, Harris, I know you were at a show. Maybe we'll start there. How was the event that you were at last week?
Yeah, I went to MicroConf. So we raised a pre-seed round from Tiny Seed. I've been a longtime fan of Rob Walling and his Startups for the Rest of Us podcast. And the first time I got a chance to go to MicroConf, and it was awesome. It was like totally what it says on the tin. It was exactly like what I had hoped. And just like a lot of bootstrap founders talking about positioning, pricing, um, kind of scaling the team. And, there's like kind of the ongoing joke of like product focused founders always want to ship more features. And it's like, yeah, maybe you should focus on marketing. so I'm kind of an external processor. I talk a lot sometimes, as my wife can attest. But I left after 2 days. I was like, I need to just sleep on this. It was just a lot to think about. But the positioning conversation was excellent. Fletch, PMM, I think. Fletch.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, the talk they gave was awesome. Liana Patch gave a very good talk on copywriting. So yeah, I left thinking about marketing and kind of how we position and how we talk. It was great. And then we got Southbound coming up. Ethan from our team is going to be going to Southbound. So I'm a bit bullish on events. All this like AI kind of stuff. I think that like being face to face is pretty important.
It becomes almost more valuable and more potent, in a world that's gone like virtual and AI led. It's like you can't rip this in anything go to market. It's gonna be a long time before you can rip the soul out of it. Like there's human psychology at the foundation of all this.
I mean, at some of the companies, even the revenue numbers are fake, right? It's kind of what we're talking about. Everything's fake, even the books. It's kind of what we're talking about on LinkedIn lately. It feels like.
Yeah, I mean, the 11x drama. I think, everybody in the space. I think there was a 0% surprise. I feel like that was like the world's worst kept secret. Everyone knew those customers weren't real, and there's a bloodbath of churn everywhere. But yeah, I think it's like, again, whether it's them or anyone else, not to like throw shade, I think there's a class of people that believe like go to market is some riddle that you can like solve in a laboratory, and it's just like it's different. It's different at each company. There's people involved, there is trust involved, there are relationships, it's just like there's so much art left. And I think, the fundamental whatever happened on the business side, who cares? But it's just like I think a lot of companies, like, they end up setting themselves down the wrong path when it's like, oh, we're just building a thing that has to pass this like sales Turing test, and it's just like it's just not gonna work, like I think any of us who've like done this, you just kind of like laugh at it. You're just like, all right, I guess that's like competition on some level we have to address, but it's just like I know it's not gonna work, so I'm like not really scared about it. I don't know.
That's a good segue for, well, not segue, but a good promotion point for Southbound. I know, Harris, you brought it up, and then Zach, you went deep into it, but
Yeah.
it really speaks that's the whole theme. And it gets into like some things change, but some things stay, like some things always stay the same. And what it's getting into is this idea of connection, the human relationship, the idea of trust. Yes, AI is really powerful, and we should all embrace how it can be used, but it's not the solution to how you go to market. And so, really making sure we have that front and center of our humans selling to humans, and make sure we have that connection being kind of going back to like Elon Musk's first principles. Like, what are the first principles that go to market? And it's like getting back into that element that I think we have over indexed. To your point about art and science, we over indexed to science, and it's like, well, now how do we get back into this happy medium of leveraging the data, leveraging tools, but using that when we're actually interfacing with the human, which is the art.
Right. You can't rip out the heart and soul of your go-to-market and replace it with AI. It's like AI is just yet another tool in the toolbox, and yeah, there's going to be like increasing leverage because of like the nature of AI, but it's like, yeah, it's not a panacea in and of itself. It's still it's an engine. You got to put a car around it.
Well, Harris, I guess going back to even just your event and thinking about, I mean, you're bootstrapped. And what are, I know you mentioned some of the things that you're thinking about from a marketing perspective, but what are some of the key takeaways as it relates to go to market or kind of the advice that that was being shared at that event? I mean,
Yeah.
I I'd love to start there. I can circle back to something. I talked to Liz Christo from Stage Two recently, and just getting her perspective of what's going on in the market. That I can kind of wrap that around. It'd be interesting to hear your perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, one thing I left, not to like pat my own back or whatever, but I do focus a lot on the growth and our partnerships and our partner relationships. And I did leave after talking to a bunch of other people feeling like, okay, we're actually further along than I thought in terms of our like actual MRR, and our churn is actually pretty low. And we have a really nice expansion, revenue expansion that's coming from partners as we like help them deploy App on Sync to more customers. So I left feeling better. I think that, it's always like, oh, one more feature. I release this feature, then we'll be, but I left kind of feeling like, okay, maybe I'm doing a better job of this than I was giving myself credit for. And so I'm thinking a lot about like marketing and partner marketing and more like I've been doing some webinars that have been really like super engaging and really well attended, which everyone kind of laughs at. At least I always thought it was like funny, the idea of the webinar, but my experience has actually been, it's been really great. I think I'm also thinking about like our pricing. I priced our product a certain way because we like just had to have a certain level of ARPU, but because it was really high touch. But I've had this experience with a couple of users where they come in at a lower price point. They're still discovering this new go-to-market motion, and like they're using some combination of like Octave and Clay and a smart lead or something like that. And it's just like it's a lot to get going in the beginning. And so we have basically, our philosophy has been like, we'll get you when you're like really ready to commit, unless you're working with an agency, in which case we have like a different price. But I've been wondering, like, as this is moving more into the middle of the bell curve, like, do we need to have a lower price? It doesn't have to be cheaper. Like the unit economics can scale down, but do we need to have an option to let people like dip their toe in? That's like a much, much, much broader thing that I don't know the answer to, but I've been thinking about that. Because it's like, how do people adopt these new tools? What does that look like? What does the actual evolution look like? And are we leaving some chunk of the market by having such a high bar in terms of the price point for the product, and requiring they have this big team, or they be working with an RP kind of thing. So I don't know. Anyway, sorry, those are like my random thoughts.
Well, Zach, how has Octave approached that? To your point about, for our audience may not be familiar with ARPU, average revenue per customer or per user, depending on how you look at it, but like getting into what Zach was just saying, Zach, or excuse me, what Harris was just saying, Zach, when you think about Octave's go to market, have you thought through like, hey, do we lower the barrier to entry on this side versus having this higher barrier? Like, because you also have partners that you're working with.
Yeah.
Be curious to know how you've thought through that problem.
We are, I guess, at our soul, we're not like we want to build this like hyper PLG company, but we are definitely like, I'd say our core belief is like product led is like the way we have to be. Like in a in an AI world of like a lot of snake oil and garbage out there, like even if it costs us money to have like and it does, like you can sign up for free and come in, and we do a bunch of stuff to like prove like this mousetrap does something, it works, like check it out. And like I think that's a pretty like the concept we talk about internally is like, especially in a lot of go-to-market tools, like they're like batteries not included. Like you buy these systems and they're just empty, and you're just like, okay, like now what? Like this didn't do anything. I conceptually understand I need these tools and systems, or like it didn't. And like what we're doing, we have the opportunity we're trying to take advantage of. Like we can create a batteries included experience. Like, hey, what's your website? Let me start figuring out like here's how you might talk to different personas, and like we can do a quick proof of value, and it costs us money. And we obviously, we're not gating you on like, I need to do a discovery call and like figure some stuff out. We're going to let you in, and maybe you have a wow aha moment. Maybe you don't, and you walk away, and like, that's okay. But like, I think on the bias, we are more for the like lower the barrier to entry, make it easy to start seeing value, make it easy to start consuming. And then, yeah, like we're trying to drive a business, and we're going to feature gate you and meter you and all that. But I think we're gravitating more towards the how do we demonstrate value quickly? How do we show you this thing's real? And then, we're really anchoring around consumption and features versus seats. Like in this new world, I think it's much more like that's a much closer proxy for value than like the traditional seat model.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's go into that a little bit further. Like when you think about consumption, seat, credits, I mean, this is always a fun topic, but it sounds like what you're saying is you're really approaching it more for solve for the customer versus like solve for, not to use a derogatory, like the bean counter, looking at the value of the company. Would love to get y'all's thoughts on how to be mindful of even that kind of at the pricing level you just described. That could be fun. I think not fun, but interesting to unpack that a little bit further.
I mean, I think, especially like for us, and I don't think this is like too specific to us, but like we kind of have to own it in a way of like we're saying there's this new paradigm and there's this new way to do outbound, and like, hey, if you just keep hiring SDRs and trying to give them yet another bazooka launcher, like that isn't gonna work. So like if we were going like, hey, you need to buy seats of Octave, like for who? Like, like I think we like kind of have to own it, and we have to go like, all right, yeah, like you get value somewhat derived from like how much you use the product, and like we need to create the experience and kind of the pricing and packaging that reflects that. I will say like it's not without its challenges as well. Like we do have customers that are just like, give me a number. Like I don't want to think about credits. I don't know. Like all we do is buy seats of stuff for our sales and marketing team. Like consumption is still a new, for the bean counters. They're like, I don't know how this fits in our model. So we do have customers, and like we're flexible to it. They're just like, I got this much to spend. What can I get? And like we can reverse engineer it, but it's like it's not without its challenges for sure.
Yeah. How about you, Harris? I guess, is it more just flat rate, or how do you think from a pricing
Yeah,
perspective?
I mean, right now we just have these like, basically, it's like a few $100 a month and up, depending on your volume. And it's like if you have this problem enough where it's important to you to get this data in HubSpot or Salesforce, then you sign up for our product because we've built the best way to do that. But it just doesn't feel like there's like a great logic to the pricing. It's just like, yeah, if I have it, that price works. And then, but like I've had people who like they signed up at a lower tier, they set it up, and then they're like, okay, it's working. I like the motion. We're going to hire an SDR. And I'm so glad I have all this stuff in place already. So that was like some testing I've been doing at a lower price point. And so like looking at Octave's pricing, like you do have, depending on if it's monthly or annual, you do have a couple options. You do have that option of under 200 a month. And I think where we get is like, we're in the between these tools, like HubSpot and Salesforce charge per user, something like a Clay is charging on per credit. And so people are like, yeah, but like, okay, like we're like the CRM, but we're connecting to both. And, I think like there's a world where we just do like more of a consumption model and it more floats. I think like ultimately is like, what is the most valuable thing for our users? How do we price in a way that our pricing helps them like make a decision that makes sense to them? I think like right now our pricing does work. Like we're growing every month, very healthy growth. And so I don't feel a need to like necessarily immediately change everything, but I think the version of this company where revenue, where we're $1 million ARR, we're not there yet. I don't think that this pricing gets us there. And so it's like, what does a mature version of this company look like? That's kind of like what I'm thinking about. It's like we're growing and it's working, but I just feel like it could be better. And if we could have more revenue from customers who value it more, then we can spend more on engineering and just like build a better product. Like I think there's like tons of problem areas. And so sometimes I feel like resource constrained, and I'm like, well, is it because my pricing is dumb? Like if I had better pricing, could I solve these problems for people who want me to solve them? And like by not figuring this out, I'm like not doing my job really, which is like solving problems for customers, because I don't want to spend 10, 20, 30 hours just sitting down and coming up with a better pricing model, because it's uncomfortable and annoying and, risky kind of thing.
Well,
So.
and I think this could be a whole nother long conversation, because I think pricing is it's not a small topic. And thinking about the evolution of the company and based off your go-to-market motion, we talk about the PLG model. We were talking about the partner when I say PLG, product-led growth. And there's also the partner-led motion. I know both of you guys work with agencies or kind of the end user, but there's like that element that impacts it. There's also company stage, the value, they can ultimately dictate pricing. And maybe we'll have to bring that up in another conversation. But Zach, I know you need to go for another call. Any final thoughts on kind of more ad hoc, just around the horn type of conversation as we have 3 founders building companies?
We should, sorry for, I know I'm cutting this one short. I think this is like worthy of like, we can go deeper here. I think one of the big things is like an interesting like macro trend line. And like, I know a lot of like investors are talking about it as well, is like technical risk is like really lowering, you know, like when they're like diligencing companies, there's like a lot more belief in the like the science experiment of like, yeah, like I believe you can build the tech, where like it used to be 30 years ago, it was like, all right, well, like, if the science experiment works, like we know there's a market for it. And now it's really kind of shifted. Is like there's a lot more belief in like you'll figure out the tech, but like, can you market it? Can you price it effectively? Can you package it effectively? Do you know your ICP? And so like, yeah, like I dig on this. Like I think there's a lot we can like unpack here and yeah, share what we're all like struggling through. And this is a fun one.
Yeah, I mean, the barrier, to your point, to summarize, I mean, the barrier to entry as it relates to product development has never been lower.
Right.
Like you're seeing just the proliferation of smaller shops with fewer people because of what you can do with AI allows for what you're just describing, where sales and marketing becomes even more and more relevant. Harris, any final thoughts on your side?
No, this is a big one to be continued. I love these conversations.
Cool.
All right, gents. Well, it's good to see you again. I missed y'all. And yeah, Southbound, May 21st. Hopefully see y'all there.
See you, man.
See y'all.